Hi, I'm BJ Jones. I'm the artistic director of Northlight Theater. And no, we're not going back permanently to At Home with BJ. We're still doing Backstage with BJ. But I got the opportunity to get a hold of Ken Ludwig, who is the prolific playwright and the playwright of Dear Jack and Dear Louise, our next piece at Northlight, and I wanted to take the opportunity to chat him about that, about his work, which, as I say, is prolific. He's done something like 30 plays, not to mention books, and he's won 3 Tony Awards, I think, 7 Olivier Awards. You're Ken, how are you?
Fine. I'm very flattered. Hey, thank you. I'm fine. It's great to see you.
No,
you and I have known each other. You and I have known each other for years. And
yeah.
I'm so glad you're doing this play. And I love the Northlight. So anyway, I'm thrilled.
I'm grateful that you're spending time with us. I got the opportunity to do Ken's play Three Musketeers, his adaptation of Three Musketeers at the Utah Shakespeare Festival when they opened their brand new theater, the Engelstadt and the outdoor theater, and it was a monster hit. And I was really proud of the production, and he was so generous as to talk me through it on several phone calls. So I didn't slit my wrists, because
it's a big show.
One of the most amazing things to me, I mean, you do original work, which is what Dear Jack and Dear Louise is, but you also adapt work very much in your own voice. And the extraordinary thing about your adaptations is they are true to the source material. They also, because when you went to Cambridge, you studied restoration comedy, and so you understand the art of not writing gags per se, but understanding comic structure and comic impulse, so that the comedy emerges from the characters, from the situation. And that's, you're truly one of the great farceurs of our era. And that is an extraordinarily difficult genre, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. What I try to do when I fell into doing adaptations by chance. A theater that was doing another one of my works said, we need something really family friendly. It's big theater, and would you adapt this classic? And the first one I did was Treasure Island, which Utah, by the way, is doing this season.
Yes.
So I sort of fell into that, and I enjoyed it. I wrote it all in blank verse. I don't know, it just seemed right. But the main thing I do, and since then I've written a few, 3 or 4 others, is Baskerville's one of the latest, based on How Did the Baskervilles. And I remember looking at that text and thinking, well, it's such a great text, as is Treasure Island, as is Three Musketeers. What can I bring to it? The issue seems to me, if I'm not going to do anything special, if it's just going to be a pretty simply faithful adaptation, why do it? Why not just go read the book? So I try to look at ways that I can make it interesting from a theatrical standpoint. With Baskerville, for example, I decided I'll just use 5 actors. 1 played Holmes, 1 played Watson, and the 3 other actors played the other 40 parts. Yeah. It instantly made it a piece for the theater. It wasn't just, we're going to just do How Did the Baskervilles. And I've tried to do that with everything I've adapted. But most of what I write, as you said, are just original comedies.
Yeah. Now, Dear Jack and Dear Louise is a very personal piece for you. It's unlike anything you've written before, I think.
Yeah.
Tell us the background and how it came about. I know you've talked about it many times before, but
Sure.
Could you tell our audience what you...
I haven't for a long time, and I'm pleased to do it. I grew up in a small town of York, Pennsylvania, and I had very loving parents. Lucky me. I had a wonderful home life. And my dad was a dermatologist, the only dermatologist in York, Pennsylvania. My mother was a very flamboyant. She was head of the medical auxiliary. She had a jewelry store at one point. She had an art gallery at one point. And the backstory of them is this, that when my mother was 21 years old and my dad was 30, they were 9 years apart in truth. They met by letter. That is, she was living in Brooklyn. She wanted to be a showgirl, and she left, went to New York, joined a stage door canteen kind of a place, and was taking dancing lessons and singing lessons. And she was like Lucille Ball and, Roz Russell rolled into one. So meanwhile, my father worked his way through college and then medical school, and became a doctor and was drafted into the Army. It was World War II. This is around 1941.
Right.
Maybe in 42. His dad and her dad said these two ought to meet each other. They knew each other from the old country. They were both tailors, and they had both come across through Ellis Island, and they'd met somewhere along the line. And his family was in Philadelphia, hers was New York, and somehow they met again. And they said, they ought to meet. So they gave each other the addresses, and mom and dad started writing to each other during World War II, and wrote and wrote and wrote, and through the letters fell in love and had a whole life in these letters before they finally met and got married. So I knew this story from my family lore. It's all true. My dad's mother was one of 13. So he had 12 aunts, and that's true, and it's in the play. So I decided, I don't know why, I'd always thought about how could I write a comedy about my mom and dad. And I thought about maybe after they got married, she'd go to Medford, Oregon, where he was stationed, because he was stationed in Oregon. I should have mentioned he was 3,000 miles away from her. So he's in Oregon, she's in New York. Maybe after they're married, she comes to the base and really shakes it up. It would like an episode of I Love Lucy or something, And I thought about that. And I thought, well, that's going to take me 12 actors. That's not such a good idea. Nobody will produce that. So I thought about how can I personalize this story and tell the story about them. And I knew that in fact they had exchanged these letters. The truth of the matter is that before she passed away, my mom destroyed them because she felt that, she never told us why, but she must have felt that they were intimate in a way that she didn't want her two sons to see them. You write love letters, you talk about intimate things in your life, and nowadays I guess we do it on texts or this or that's, and you say, gee, I don't want my children to see. So in any case, she got rid of them, but I knew they had existed. So one day out of the blue, I thought, how I'll try to tell this story? I'll roll up my sleeves and I'll create the letters between them. So the way the play works, it's an epistolary play. It's all letters.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't know that you actually made them up. I thought perhaps you had seen them and sort of.
Not a one.
Well, that's great. That's amazing. And the fact that, epistolary plays are very hard to pull off. There's maybe one other that I can think of that's successful, and that's Pete Kearney's Love Letters.
And I was inspired by Love Letters.
Yes, but this is very different. This has those are episodes with different people. You have the same two characters and a trajectory of a relationship, which includes tension and stakes. That's scene work, but this is not scene work. In fact, the letters address each other in places in which it's almost like a dialogue. It's almost as if the characters are on stage with each other, speaking to each other. And that's not the case with Love Letters.
Dear Jack, Dear Louise is a play that fills the stage. There's a set. There's tons of lighting cues, music cues. Anybody goes and they say, we're at a regular play. And they move around the stage and they memorize these letters. So they once in a while pretend for a moment like, we know they're exchanging letters, but the idea is to really get into their souls, to really play it for keeps.
Yes, and that dialogue really activates the action forward, and what I love about it, again, because you are so good at comedy, not jokes per se, but situational character driven comedy
Thank you. Thank you.
humor, that it sort of comes so naturally, and it's your voice. It's very personal. I also think it's very personal in a way that honors your mother and her feeling about those letters.
Yeah, that's what it's meant to do. That's what it's meant to do. She's the real balabusta in that relationship. Yeah.
You're the character. Your dad's name is Jack, right?
Right.
And your son's name is Jack, right?
Yeah, named after him, right?
Yeah, that's great. What a tribute. What a heartfelt tribute.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think your mom. Can you talk about your mom? Because she sounds like, if it weren't for her, you wouldn't be in show business.
I never saw her in my life without high heels on, ever. Not once. Towards the end of her life, my brother and I would say, you ought to, people wear sneakers now, even, it's cool, never wouldn't go near them. She grew up in an era where she dressed like Lauren Bacall. She acted like Rosalind Russell. She had been a model, a runway model first when she was 17. She was very beautiful. And she then threw herself into the idea of being in the theater. She went to NYU for 1 year and she just said, this is not for me. I want to be in the theater. She moved to New York. She went to this equivalent of the stage door, boarding house. I forget what I call it in the play. And she knew some people who then became famous. Van Johnson was one of the crop there was the boys' side and the girls' side, and Oscar Levant. She worked hard at it. And lo and behold, she did get a play. She did get a part in a Broadway tour. And then, I don't want to give the story away for your audiences, what happens in the play, but then her life changed. And finally, when she raised me in York, Pennsylvania, she joined what was then called the York Little Theater, which is now called the Belmont Theater, and it's the community theater. And she was in lots of their plays. And my brother and I'd sit in the front row and look up, and there she was under the footlights, or behind the footlights and under the spotlight.
Yeah.
And, she was great.
You're also a lawyer.
Well, that's like turning to somebody who started out and waited tables to become a player and say, you're also a waiter. No, it happens a lot. It happens all the time. I wanted to be in the theater ever since I was a kid. I did nothing but think about theater, lived, drank, and ate theater, went to high school, went to college. The end of college, my parents said, well, this is all very nice that you want to go into the theater. What are you really going to do? How are you going to make a living? And I went ahead and thought, well, there's something to say for that. Hard to make a living in the theater. And maybe I should have been bolder and just said, nope, I'm going to go straight into theater and become a waiter, because you can't, especially as a writer, you got to write the plays first.
Yeah.
But I went ahead and applied to a graduate school, which is what they wanted me to do. And I applied to Harvard Law School and I got in. And at that point, having gotten in, I had to go, okay, I'll go. So I went to Harvard Law School, got a scholarship to study in Cambridge, as you know, and that's where I studied restoration comedy, and then finished up Harvard, and I had no money. So having no money, none, I had to I had to eat. So and get someplace to live. So I practiced law for, I forget, 3, 4, I forget how many years to earn a living. So I earned a living, and I could, and all the while I was writing plays. Every morning, I'd wake up every single morning, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd put religiously 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd take a shower, I'd put on my jeans, I'd look like this, and I'd write for 4 hours till 8:30. And at 8:30, I'd put my suit on and I'd walk to the law firm. And after the first, so I wrote about 3 plays that way for it. It's about the 4th play I wrote was one called Lend Me a Tenor. It wasn't called Lend Me a Tenor at the time. It was called Opera Bouffe, I called it. And I sent it to I met somebody who was a director in England. He looked at it. He called me up and he said, I have a producer friend I want to show it to. I was a jackass and I said, well, no, don't show it. I have friends too. You know, I'm not an unknown. I was completely unknown, but I had to pretend I was an unknown. They said, oh, you know, I have friends too. I have producer friends. It's all, a lot of them are looking at it. Who's your friend? And he said, Andrew Lloyd Webber. So he was great friends with Andrew. He showed it to Andrew. Andrew decided to produce it in the West End. He produced it at the what is now the Gielgud Theater in Shaftesbury Avenue. It was a huge hit, won Olivier Award and so on. And then he produced it on Broadway. So Andrew produced it on Broadway too, and that's what kicked off my career and changed my life.
And what a great career it's been and continues to be. You're really busy. You've got operas coming up, and you said Murder on the Orient Express is maybe headed to the West End, and you know, my congratulations to you. And I'm very grateful for Dear Jack and Dear Louise. It's our audience is going to love it this summer.
Thanks, BJ. You're great. It's just
you're great. I'm very grateful, and I can't wait to start on Dear Jack and Dear Louise.
Good. Keep me posted.
Oh, I'm gonna. Thank you.
Okay.